Welcome to the Film and Cinematography Podcast. What's up guys, I'm Alex and welcome to a new episode of the Filmmaking and Cinematography Podcast. And today let's talk about making a documentary. But not any kind of boring and basic documentary. No, we want to create a documentary that really tells a story. Not only tells a good story, but a deep story that people will really enjoy. An experience that they will need to enjoy. So in the past year, or let's say in the last months, I started to work on my own documentary, on my first documentary. But I had a different approach than normal. I could simply take a bunch of interviews, stick them together in an edit, put some cool music and okay, that's my documentary. But no, I want to create a documentary that is really an experience, and more than an experience. A movie that will show the deep problems, in my case, of the society. As with any movie, you need to start from an idea. In my case, this idea came from two places. First of all, it started with my previous movie, in which the story was about an old man who died under mysterious circumstances. But the thing was that after everything has happened to him, a more horror-ish and sci-fi story, his grandson discovered the real truth about him. And this truth shocked him. So, by the way, that movie was called Snapping, so is called Snapping, and you can watch it in the link in the description of this episode below. The second place was the idea of my dad, who thought about this loneliness, because this man that we have shown in the movie is lonely. He has a lonely life. His grandson didn't even bother to visit him on his birthday, so this meant that he was completely lonely. His best friend, to say so, was his camera, which he got from his grandson. So this was a powerful story about loneliness, not only about the deep past that the character had, but also about this loneliness. So this was the most important part from which I got my story. Yeah, but story is just the first place, because you need this story to show it. One of the most important rules that I used in this documentary was the rule that I should show it, not say it. This is a very important rule in filmmaking, because this also separates the advanced and the pro directors and the filmmakers from those who just start out. You can simply have a simple scene and a narrator that tells the story that happens, or a backstory and so, but everybody can do that. It's more important to show the story. So just for the viewer to see the image, he should already understand some backstory of the character or the current state of the character and so on. In my case, many of these things were decided in the pre-production. As I said previously, this is not just a simple documentary where I can just take some interviews, edit them together and that's it, I can publish it as a documentary. No, I want to tell a story, and this story to be a deep story. But to show this, I need to have a film scene, and this is a documentary where I combine two genres. So first of all, as I said, the documentary genre, so showing a problem, a real problem. But I also have another interesting genre, which is some sort of a horror drama genre, where you see this loneliness of the character in a more horrorish way, a more powerful way. This was all thought out in the pre-production, where I needed to do two things. First of all, to sit down and think about a timeline of the movie. I cannot really call it a screenplay, because in a documentary we need to show something that is not scripted. We are also depending on the interviews. But in my case, the interviews were another story, but about interviews we're going to talk just a bit later. So regarding the scenes, of course, I made some sort of a screenplay to really show what I wanted to the story in the film to be. After the screenplay was done, I could immediately start with the production. The most important part in the production was the visual storytelling. Some of the shots were already planned out from the pre-production, mostly about the alignment and the studio inside it. But the storytelling was mostly done right there on the production, on the set. And some things that I really enjoyed having and I really thought out was a lot of symbols. For example, different objects that symbolize loneliness, or in every single shot we see just one single subject. This is again another thing that symbolizes loneliness. So these symbols really were a huge part of the visual storytelling. I could now talk hours long of what these symbols and visual storytelling was in this movie, but I want the people will understand them, because I can simply just tell them, but I want the people to see them and to understand it, the viewers to understand what these symbols mean and what the visual storytelling behind the whole movie is. After the production was done, the editing process started. And as with any other movie, the first thing was just simply creating a rough cut. But now I found a problem. A documentary doesn't just require to show a story, because then it would be considered a drama movie. In a documentary, you need to also give some facts. So I had now two options, which both were included in some way or another in the movie. My first idea was to have a narrator, but not a narrator that tells the story that I wasn't, let's say, able to create in the shots I took, but a narrator that tells purely informations about this problem. And yes, this narrator actually appeared in the movie, but under some other way. I didn't want to have a basic narrator that, like on the documentaries that show general information about physics, geography, or I don't know, any other stuff like this. This is a psychological documentary, so I couldn't just say direct informations. So everything that the narrator says was made in a poem way. He doesn't just show and say the informations directly, he says them into a mysterious way. But the documentary isn't just that. My second way to make this movie a documentary and not a drama movie was to have interviews. My first option was to interview elderly people who are lonely, and yes, they can tell a lot about their past and how they became lonely. But when creating a documentary, you also need to think about what the viewer will want to see. Me as a viewer, I don't really care about somebody's life story who I don't personally know. What would I care? I don't get any information from that. So I started on another approach by getting people in my documentary to interview them who really know a lot about this phenomenon of loneliness. In my case, I chose to have a priest. He's a very known priest in my country, and this was a really powerful way of completing the whole story that started from the lonely man that is shown in a, let's say, a drama, maybe horror movie. But with this interview, we also give informations to the people. All in all, making a documentary isn't just to show random images, or not really random images, but to show a movie, because that is a movie of another genre. It could be horror, it could be sci-fi, drama, and so on. We don't want just to show a story, but also to give information to the people. That's what makes a documentary. But the most important rule is to show our story, to show the problem that we want to give to the people, or not really a problem, but the story that we need to show them. We need to show it and not say it. So that's it for today, guys. I know it was a pretty short episode, but it was like that because I don't want to spoil anything from the documentary, which will soon come, which will be released this summer. But I also want to tell more about the documentaries in the coming episodes. So there are gonna be multiple episodes about this theme, about this documentary, and about how to really create a documentary. This, let's say, was just the entry-level episode. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. Welcome to the Film and Cinematography Podcast.